Hey everyone, my name is Taryn and thank you so much for stopping by Birdhouse Blooms. This is an update about my tulips. It's all about what I've been trying to do growing tulips hydroponically for Valentine's Day and just in general for growing hydroponic tulips. If you've been watching my videos, you know that I am temporarily in an apartment. My husband and I are moving and we're building a new house, but in the meantime, we are here in an apartment. So the big question is, did I successfully get tulips in time for Valentine's Day? And the answer to that question is yes, I did. I was able to get blooms. The entire first round of tulips that I planted did harvest in time. And then after that, actually the next group of tulips that I had planted, they were ready to pull, and not all of them, but a lot of them. So I found that the tulips were maturing much faster than I anticipated. I don't think it was a good thing. I don't know if it was a bad thing, but the faster they grow, the more problems you can have with like legginess and stem strength. And I did notice my bell-song tulips, which were the ones I specifically chose for Valentine's Day, were pretty thin on the stems, and they just didn't have as much, I don't know, they were just kind of dainty. And that's just not what I'm used to when growing tulips outdoors. Now, it is known that hydroponically grown tulips do have less mass to them. They are smaller and thinner than field-grown tulips, and that's a known fact. But they were a little less than I would have liked, but they were still absolutely gorgeous. People loved them anyway. The fringe is beautiful, and so they're a unique variety. And so I don't want to say that I didn't like them, but they were just a little thinner than I would have liked. And I wasn't sure, since the first round I planted was all bell-song. That's the only variety I planted. The next round of tulips that I planted had a variety of varieties. I had a mixture of varieties, and those ones were not quite as thin and leggy as the bell-song tulips were. So it might just be that variety. I did have other ones that were much, much better. The ones that did the best were a variety called Merrick's Pride, which are actually these tulips that I have here behind me. These ones grew, see if I can get one out. So these ones grew much taller and much thicker on these stems. Now this one obviously has been in the vase, and you know they continue to grow after you cut them in the vase. So this is elongated more and thinner and paler than it was. But you can see this is a very sturdy, nice tulip. And this variety was absolutely amazing for the bloom size, and the vigor. The only thing with this is the color palette is not really my favorite. There weren't pictures available of this when I selected it, and I thought it was going to be a little more peach, a little more apricot-y, kind of like this part. But this to me is a little red. It's almost maroon. And this is an amazing tulip, but this color is just not what I prefer. And I am having a hard time saying, no, I'm not going to get this variety again, because it was such a good tulip. But I don't really care for the color of it, which I know a lot of people do like this kind of color palette, and that's perfectly fine. But for me, I don't know. I'm like torn if I'll get this one again. But these are like, look at these. Look how beautiful. They just did the best as far as stem length and thickness of the plant. I have a whole list of things here to remind myself of what to talk about. So, okay, so I mentioned the tulips were maturing faster than I expected. And some of the problems I was having was that my grow space was too warm. The grow lights I'm using are much, much stronger than what you actually need for seedlings or for tulips. You don't need really fancy, nice grow lights. The reason I have these grow lights that are like that is because last year I was trying to grow ranunculus and have them bloom all the way to full flower for Valentine's Day. And I wanted really good lights to try to get that to happen. And if you remember, I only got like, I think like 7 or 8 stems on that experiment. It didn't really work very well. But I know I also had to start those plants later than I wanted to because of problems with shipping from the supplier. And then I also got aphids really bad on those. So I had to wash them multiple times. And it just didn't work out how I wanted to. So that's why I was trying the tulips this year. But anyways, the grow lights produced a lot of heat. And I tried having my setup in a closet so that it was out of the way. But I ended up having to get some different shelving units that created a lot more space between the blooms and the lights. That's not normally what you would do if you're using like seedling strength lights or shop lights or something like that. But these grow lights were too hot and too strong if you get too close to them. So I needed a different shelving unit. And these are actually made for laundry, for garment racks, like to replace your closet or something. That's what kind of racks these are. And I also had to move these out into my husband's office instead of our closet. And there's actually another one in our bedroom. So it's very intrusive living in an apartment. It's getting old quick, but it's the only place I could put them. That was, I would say it was less warm than the closet, but it was still too warm. Tulips like to be cold, and it is not cold enough in our apartment with the grow lights going. Overnight, it drops to around 65, which is better, but during the day when we're running the lights and stuff, it's still too warm. So that is how the first 2 rounds of tulips went. Now on the second round, I did notice a little bit of disease happening. I had one tray with a certain variety that got stem topple, and I thought maybe this is variety specific. But then my third round of tulips, I had to trash every single one. The whole group got stem topple and had to be thrown away. So there's multiple reasons that could be happening. And again, this is my first time growing hydroponic tulips. This is all stuff that I learned about in the Tulip Workshop. And so I feel like I'm able to pinpoint the reasons behind why I'm having problems. It's just stuff that I can't really address here in the apartment because I don't have the appropriate grow spaces to do the tulips how they need to be done. I'm trying a few different things for the next round of tulips, just trying to bring the humidity down in the rooting phase. I was trying to root my tulips in a refrigerator, which some people have had luck doing and some people don't. And I've noticed that when you put a bunch of trays of water into a refrigerator, the humidity is way, way too high. It's way higher than what's recommended. So I know that is likely the reason I'm having stem topple. But I was talking to my friend about it because, I got away with not having it for the first 2 rounds. So there's a chance that I'm just not cleaning the trays properly. I was using really hot water and dish soap to clean them, and I know you're supposed to sanitize them with something that will kill bacteria and mold and stuff like that. So that's one thing I didn't do that I need to start doing. And the other thing is, I kind of noticed, my friend pointed out, she's like, well, could you just open the door on the fridge and let some of that air circulate through, several times a day or something like that? And I do think that's a good idea. And I did kind of notice after thinking about it that the first round of tulips, I opened that door a lot because I just didn't know what to expect and I was curious and I was just kind of like looking in to see what they were doing. And the second round, I did that a little bit. In the third round, I didn't open that door a single time because I knew what to expect. I knew how long it was going to take for them to root before I needed to move them. And I didn't open that door and let any of that air out a single time. So that may also have contributed to the humidity problems that I had. I am doing another experiment. I mean, being stuck in the apartment is giving me the perfect excuse to do all these experiments on the tulips because I really don't have anything else going on right now. So, I mean, as far as the gardening, I am growing a lot of seedlings that I was hoping to be able to transplant into the new house, but our closing has been delayed yet again. So I don't really know what's going to happen to all these seedlings that I have, but they're all cool flowers. The seedlings are things like Lisianthus and yarrow, status, feverfew, eucalyptus, so mostly perennials, very slow growing. And I do have some snapdragons. So I'm hoping to be able to get into the house soon enough to be able to save all these, and I could at least pot up the perennial seedlings. But anyways, I have a lot of time on my hands because I'm not managing the garden outside. So the next experiment I'm going to try to do with the tulips is, instead of using the full depth 10-20 tray, I'm going to use the shallow trays. So there's two different things. The first thing I'm trying is a hemp grow mat in the bottom of the tray and just keeping that very wet with maybe just a tiny bit of standing water on top of it, and rooting them in that instead of rooting them in a big tray of water. I feel like the less water, the less humidity. I'm also trying to root these outside on our patio instead of in the fridge. The temperatures have shifted enough that I feel like I might be able to do that. It might slow them down a little bit because it's not quite the right temperature. It's a little cold overnight, but it might be okay. So there's so many variables into getting this exactly right. In the house, I'm hoping to move the rooting phase into our crawl space instead of refrigerators. That would help a lot with the humidity situation. The crawl space is going to be sealed, so hopefully there aren't critters in there eating my bulbs, and that might just work better. I also would rather grow the tulips in the garage instead of inside because it would be cooler and I would have less of the blind tulips and the bolting happening and the legginess because it wouldn't be as warm as it is inside. Now, if the hemp grow mats don't work, I want to try growing in the shallow trays of water instead of the big trays of water to see if that will work. I noticed that the way I envisioned that the growing would happen is I thought that the tulips were going to produce a ton of root mass and reach down into the basin of water and just drink tons and tons of water out of that basin. And it really didn't. They grew some roots. They were decent roots, but they weren't really in there drinking a ton of water. So I feel like having a tray of this much water versus having just a couple of inches won't even be that different, except that I may need to water them more often, but I don't think it would make much difference as far as space is concerned. Another thought I had is maybe dry storing the bulbs like you would for hydroponics, but then rooting them the same way for hydroponics, but then growing them in soil, or something like coconut coir, or another sterile medium that is not as biological as soil to kind of keep the bacteria down. Just a different kind of approach. None of that was discussed in the Tulip Workshop. That would just be me kind of going off on my own, trying something a little bit different. My goal with that is that I don't really have space to do the soil forcing like the way they teach it. I don't have a walk-in cooler. I don't plan on getting a walk-in cooler or anything like that. So it just would be something I could try also. So there's a couple more things I want to talk about. And the first is sales. I just want to be honest about this. I am not selling my tulips. I have been advertising them on Instagram and trying to get people to come to my shop in Wake Forest, and it's just not working very well. Tulips are hard. You have to be able to sell them really quickly, and you need sales outlets. Last year, I just decided that I needed to do things differently. That meant I did not want to deliver anymore. I wanted to keep my sales really close to home within my hometown, and the majority of my client base was probably 40 to 45 minutes away from where I lived. And I just decided that that wasn't sustainable for me to drive that far anymore. And so I lost like almost all of my clients. And I still have a few really good clients nearby, but you need more than a few if you're going to have a lot of sales. And so I took a lot of bouquets for Valentine's Day to my retail location, and I sold just a few, and then a few that I took to work with me. So that's not very many. I have a lot of tulips for myself this year, which is amazing. I've been decorating our apartment and everything, but it's just the truth. I'm having a really hard time getting sales, and I'm just finding that posting my stuff on Instagram is not enough. I've been trying to slowly grow my email list, but I'm still just not reaching people that would be interested in locally grown product that is pesticide and chemical free. That's kind of a niche, and I'm just not reaching those people with my Instagram. Hopefully I can get more tulips that are disease free and that I can bring to full harvest. And I think the key really is going to be signing up for events and vendor sales in my hometown. That way I can meet more people that are looking for flowers that are in my area. Getting walk-by traffic is not really working. There's a lot of foot traffic at my storefront within our little shop that we share with a bunch of different vendors, but there's just not a lot of sales. So I'm not getting the right people in front of my flowers. I'm also super excited about this book by Lenny Larkin. I'm really hoping to read her business strategies and marketing strategies and see if this book can really, really help me flower farming for profit. Now, I don't want to focus too much on profits. I still grow flowers because I absolutely love growing flowers. And even if I never get another sale again, I'm still going to grow cut flowers. But making the decision to narrow down my business to just my zip code and not do deliveries and all that kind of stuff has really affected my sales. But I think it's important for me to do something that's sustainable. So I just kind of feel like I'm starting over a little bit. And I hope to bring you guys along on the journey of me trying to find new sales outlets. And I think that her book will really help give me some ideas and strategies on how I can grow my business and move forward. There was something else I wanted to tell you about. Can't remember. Oh, okay. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is the fact that it is almost time to buy tulip bulbs for next year. And I'm having a little bit of trepidation or hesitancy around that on how many I should buy. And sometimes I'm like, are tulips even worth it? They're very expensive and they're not selling. So should I keep trying with the tulips? Let me know what your thoughts are. It's frustrating to be in this spot where I don't have clients and customers waiting, and the tulips are not selling, but it's time to purchase tulips for next season. And I could also make the investment in the hydroponic trays if I wanted to, but that's a really big investment. And I'm not sure how many years of tulips I should give myself. I've never really had a good tulip year where I felt like things went smoothly. I don't know if I should expect that. Tulips are a challenging crop to grow, but I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are, if I should give up on tulips or if I should keep trying. But I think I probably will try tulips again. I have the whole summer and fall to try to grow my business in this specific area and find new clients. So it's kind of, there's less heartbreak involved in that when what you're having to donate or not sell are things like sunflowers and zinnias and cut and come again things that you've grown from seeds. Even dahlias, like I keep all my dahlia tubers, I overwinter them, so it really isn't that big of a deal if I can't sell my stems on the dahlias. So I think I really want to focus this summer on and fall on building those client and business relationships, and then that would really help me with tulip sales for the next year. But it is just a little frustrating to have kind of a flop for Valentine's Day. I was trying so hard to get all of these stems and then they just didn't sell anyway. But I'm glad I tried, and now I'm learning how to do hydroponic better and trying new things and just trying to work something out. And the main takeaway is that the growing of the tulips needs to be sustainable. It needs to not burn me out. And that has happened to me the past 2 years, growing them out in the field, because it's just really hard in the South. I'm in North Carolina. Our weather fluctuates too much. And a huge benefit with growing hydroponic is you can succession plant and plan on how many stems you're going to be harvesting when, which is not something I could do before. My entire field would mature at the same time, and that was just always chaos. It was terrible. So I think I'm moving in the right direction. It's a little, not the perfect year, but I, have to decide soon, within the next few weeks probably, if I'm going to be doing tulips again next year. So let me know what you think about that. Thank you for following along on my tulip adventures, and maybe, most likely, there will be more because I just love tulips, but I just love that I can share everything with you and be really honest about what I'm going through, and hopefully, have more updates on these experiments about the trays and the hemp mats and just how to make things easier if you're growing on a small scale and don't have resources for a walk-in cooler or a very large grow space, or to have crates and crates full of soil forest bulbs and things like that. So I hope you follow along. Thanks for following so far, and I'll see you next time. Bye.